Howdy, everyone. My name is Israel, and you're on Forward March. So, one of the things that I wanted to share my thoughts on was the Department of Defense, Department of War. The Secretary is Pete Hegseth. As you all know, he did on September 30th, 2025, he had roughly 800 generals, admirals, senior enlisted advisors met. He called them all to Quantico, and I don't remember a time where this, and obviously not in my lifetime, that a Secretary of War um, has done that. And so, so anyway, I wanted to just highlight some of the things. If you haven't heard the whole thing, the Department of War, I gotta get used to saying that, has a video. I'll include it in the comment section, but there's like four big takeaways. I mean, there's a lot of information, a lot of things that he said and he did, or excuse me, that he said that maybe for some people was a bit rough, but through my lens, which I went in the military in 1990 and I got out in 2017. So I have that era to look at what, or to examine of what Pete said. And if there's some takeaways here, or some of the takeaways that I got was, one is he's going to change the culture. It seems that the woke culture um, has infiltrated, has eroded readiness, and so there's like four main takeaways that I want to discuss. One of them is, and he mentions it, is woke culture and the effect and impact that it has on the military and its mission to defend the United States, to win wars, yada yada yada, and that woke culture needs to be eradicated, whether at all levels of leadership, all the way down to uh, junior enlisted members. So, at all levels, that has to be eradicated. And it doesn't matter who it is. If you're not down with the vision, the future of the Department of War, they're bouncing you. So, a return, that's one, the woke culture. Two is a return to standards, whether it's physical fitness, grooming, no, no beards. He said, the no more beardos. So yeah, and the big thing about standards is just physical fitness. He did say he doesn't want to see fat people in the military, and let me just, before I get too far ahead, is that the military, to even get in, it's very discriminatory. If you're too fat, they don't want you, or historically they don't want you. Um, they'll boot you for it. Right? If you have a criminal record or certain crimes, they don't want you. If you had certain medications, they don't want you. If you can't pass academic standards, minimum like GT or anything like that, they don't want you. If you've done any drugs of certain kinds, certain drugs, illegal drugs, and even some medicated ones, they don't want you. So we're already starting out that just because you want to serve doesn't necessarily mean you're going to serve. Not everyone gets that opportunity. So it's an honor and a privilege to serve. And uh, it is not a right. Everyone that wants to serve doesn't get that opportunity. So, uh, anyway, so the rejection of woke culture. Two is physical fitness and grooming standards. Big. Uh, Leadership. And that's where he's going to cut the head off the snake, right? If for wokeness and not uh, leaders that don't want to enforce the standard, or leaders that maybe previously felt that they could not enforce the standard because of political pressure, right, of civilian leadership. And so that's it right there. So you're gonna see, and he already did. Pete already fired GOs, general officers, admirals, generals that did not want to, that have that same vision that he does, or that the POTUS does. And excuse me. And lastly, his focus on warfighting ethos. So, man, it is. He wants to unencumber leaders at all levels, commanders at all levels, NCOs, to get back to their warfighting function, right? He wants warriors, he wants meat eaters. He doesn't want like, oh, you know, it's too cold out there, I can't do it, or man, my nails are jacked up. And no, this dude wants straight up warriors. So, but anyway, I'll let Pete, I'm not going to run the whole thing, but I'll kind of interject during certain points. So here it goes.
There are many different stripes across our joint force. The era of politically correct,
Booyah!
overly sensitive, don't hurt anyone's feelings leadership ends right now. At every level, either you can meet the standard, either you can do the job, either you are disciplined, fit, and trained, or you are out. And that's why today, at my direction, and this is the first of 10 Department of War directives that are arriving at your commands as we speak and in your inbox. Today, at my direction, each service will ensure that every requirement for every combat MOS, for every designated combat arms position, returns to the highest male standard only.
So the standard thing, right? Or standards. So when I first went into the Marine Corps, there were certain standards, right, in boot camp, and there was no one saying like, hey, you know what, let me just look the other way. You either met it or you're out. There was no waffling, none whatsoever. And one thing he does mention, Pete, is he wants to get, if a standard was created after the 90s, he wants to reevaluate every standard post 1990s, which is, hey, that's the era that I served in, so it's kind of, I find it funny. But yeah, this Pete, he is not playing. He's not playing.
Because this job is life or death. Standards must be met. And not just met, at every level, we should seek to exceed the standard, to push the envelope, to compete. It's common sense. And core to who we are and what we do, it should be in our DNA. Today, at my direction, we are also adding a combat field test for combat arms units that must be executable in any environment at any time and with combat equipment. These tests, they'll look familiar. They'll resemble the Army Expert Physical Fitness Assessment or the Marine Corps Combat Fitness Test. I'm also directing that warfighters in combat jobs execute their service fitness test at a gender-neutral, age-normed male standard scored above 70%. It all starts with physical fitness and appearance. If the Secretary of War can do regular, hard PT, so can every member of our joint force.
So I'm just going to stop it there, because there's one time that I was in the Marine Corps, and you know, I was an infantryman in the Marines, and I've mentioned it on in previous videos, but there was a gunny in the infantry unit that if you looked fat, he was going to make sure that you were meeting the body fat standards. So it seems like it's going back to that.
Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops.
Uh-oh.
Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon.
Ooh.
And leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look.
one of the things that is hard, and I've realized this over time, is one of the hardest things for me to do, and this is even now, I'm out, right, no longer serving, is work for a supervisor or a boss, a leader, that is a hypocrite. Now, I try not to be that hypocrite as a leader or as a supervisor, whatever you want to call it. And if I had a boss telling me you got to meet the minimum standards in physical fitness, and that joker hasn't passed the APFT or that Army PFT or the physical fitness test when I was in the Marine Corps, or it tells me you need a qualified expert and he bolos at the range or doesn't qualify, yeah, man, I got an issue with you, man. You can't even meet the standard. You tell him you expect me to do it. So it starts at the top. That if your GOs are fat, out of shape, then the message is that it's okay, right? And I remember one of the regulations for body weight composition, AR 600-9, and it said generals were exempt. If I remember that correctly, and you can put on the comments, man, if I was wrong or if I am wrong, but I'm pretty sure they were exempt from body weight standards. But Pete goes on to say well, I'll let him say it, but there you go.
It is bad, and it's not who we are. So whether you're an airborne ranger or a chairborne ranger, a brand new private or a 4-star general, you need to meet the height and weight standards and pass your PT test. And as the chairman said, yes, there is no PT test. But today, at my direction, every member of the Joint Force at every rank is required to take a PT test twice a year, as well as meet height and weight requirements twice a year.
Booyah!
Every year of service.
If you're fat and you're in the ranks, this is your marching orders, man. You better go on the OMAD or OMAD, the 1 meal a day, or intermittent fasting, or the carnivore or something, because man, your days are numbered. And there'll be a period where they can rehabilitate you and stuff like that. But yeah, if you're a dud in general, if you're a dud in the ranks, man, they're letting loose. All commanders at all levels, man, if you're a subpar military service member, you about to get booted, homie. About to get booted.
Also today, at my direction, every warrior across our joint force is required to do PT every duty day. Should be common sense. I mean, most units do that already. But we're codifying it. And we're not talking like hot yoga and stretching. Real hard PT, either as a unit or as an individual. At every level, from the Joint Chiefs to everyone in this room to the youngest private, leaders set the standard. And so many of you do this already.
It's refreshing, man. You know it's refreshing for a lot of the people in the room. Just knowing that the Secretary of War, along with the POTUS, they're down with this. This is the culture they want to set. And some of them in the audience are probably like, I'm out, right? So, but they're not going to lose any sleep over it. If you're not down with the new vision, the new culture, then, right? About face or whatever, you're out of here.
Active, guard, and reserve. This also means grooming standards. No more beards, long hair, superficial individual expression. We're going to cut our hair, shave our beards, and adhere to standards. Because it's like the broken windows theory of policing. It's like when you let the small stuff go, the big stuff eventually goes. So you have to address the small stuff. This is on duty, in the field, and in the rear. If you want a beard, you can join Special Forces. If not, then shave. We don't have a military full of Nordic pagans. But unfortunately, we have had leaders who either refuse to call BS and enforce standards, or leaders who felt like they were not allowed to enforce standards. Both are unacceptable. And that's why today, at my direction, the era of unprofessional appearance is over. No more beardos. The era of rampant and ridiculous shaving profiles is done. Simply put, if you do not meet the male-level physical standards for combat positions, cannot pass a PT test, or don't want to shave and look professional, it's time for a new position or a new profession. I sincerely appreciate the proactive efforts the secretaries have already taken in some of those areas, service secretaries. And these directives are intended to simply accelerate those efforts. On the topic of standards, allow me a few words to talk about toxic leaders. Upholding and demanding high standards is not toxic.
And goes to what I was saying earlier. He's giving leadership a green light. If you're not cutting the mustard, you're not meeting the standard, man, you can get a get well plan or a improvement plan, rehabilitation program, whatever you want to call it, or not, and then you're out. So, and it's tough out here with jobs, man. They're not just, the job market out here in the civilian side isn't like great. So, hopefully he took advantage of college tuition. You got yourself a degree, you got some training. I'm not saying college degrees is a metric for success post-military time. It's a metric, but not necessarily it's gonna equate to you being successful out here. Hopefully you got some good training while you're in there, all right? Because, man, the days of hiding out in the military and just being a dud, it sounds like they're over.
Enforcing high standards, not toxic leadership. Leading warfighters toward the goals of high, gender-neutral, and uncompromising standards in order to forge a cohesive, formidable, and lethal Department of War is not toxic. It is our duty, consistent with our constitutional oath. Real toxic leadership is endangering subordinates with low standards. Real toxic leadership is promoting people based on immutable characteristics or quotas instead of based on merit. Real toxic leadership is promoting destructive ideologies that are an anathema to the Constitution and the laws of nature and nature's God, as Thomas Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence. The definition of toxic has been turned upside down, and we're correcting that. That's why today, at my direction, we're undertaking a full review of the department's definitions of so-called toxic leadership, bullying, and hazing, to empower leaders to enforce standards without fear of retribution or second guessing.
Man.
Of course, you can't do like nasty bullying and hazing. We're talking about words like bullying and hazing and toxic. They've been weaponized and bastardized inside our formations, undercutting commanders and NCOs. No more. Setting, achieving, and maintaining high standards is what you all do. And if that makes me toxic, then so be it. Second, today at our direction, we're ensuring that every service, every unit, every schoolhouse, and every form of professional military education conduct an immediate review of their standards. Now, we've done this in many places already, but today it goes across the entire Department of War. Any place where tried and true physical standards were altered, especially since 2015 when combat arms standards were changed to ensure females could qualify, must be returned to their original standard. Other standards have been manipulated to hit racial quotas as well, which is just as unacceptable. This too must end. Merit only. The president talks about it all the time. Merit-based.
So, and I agree. So the military is the ultimate, should be the ultimate meritocracy, in that doesn't matter where you're from, what you look like, male, female. Man, if you're good, what is that? That the cream rises to the top. La creme de la creme. You're going to stand out amongst your peers. You will. if you're that good and if you bring it, you know, A game every day. I've seen it. And so and look, not to kid myself, I don't know. My parents immigrated from Mexico, but maybe in my career, maybe that helped me. I checked that block, Hispanic, Latino, and maybe just to be fully transparent, to keep it real, that maybe that I benefited from that EO, affirmative action, whatever you want to call it. Maybe not. I like to think that I did it on my own merit, because yeah, it was game on every day in the military. You know how it was, especially if you became a senior leader, senior enlisted member or whatever. So anyway, we're almost gonna wrap this up, man. I got a couple more minutes.
Here are two basic frameworks I urge you to pursue in this process. Standards I call, my staff's heard all about them, the 1990 test and the E6 test. The 1990s test is simple. What were the military standards in 1990? And if they have changed, tell me why. Was it a necessary change based on the evolving landscape of combat? Or was the change due to a softening, weakening, or gender-based pursuit of other priorities? 1990s seems to be as good a place to start as any. And the E6 test. Ask yourself, does what you're doing make the leadership, accountability, and lethality efforts of an E6, or frankly an O3, does it make it easier or more complicated? Does the change empower staff sergeants, petty officers, and tech sergeants to get back to basics?
So I have a theory about 1990. So, like I said earlier, that's when I went in, 1990. And if you think about 1990, there was still Vietnam veterans in 1990. There was a few Marines in my unit when I was going to School of Infantry in Camp Pendleton that were Vietnam era veterans. Because if you look at 1990, say, like I did 25 years. What if somebody was at the tail end of their career and they sent them to go be instructors at the School of Infantry, right? Just kind of right out in the sunset, or right off on the sunset, right? Of their careers. So if somebody was an infantryman with let's say 25 years, that means that puts him going into the Marine Corps in 1965. So you still had Vietnam veterans in the ranks in 1990, which I know, bro, I'm getting old. I feel it every time I wake up.
The answer should be a resounding yes. The E6 test or O3 test clarifies a lot, and it clarifies quickly. Because war does not care if you're a man or a woman. Neither does the enemy. Nor does the weight of your rucksack, the size of an artillery round, or the body weight of a casualty on the battlefield who must be carried.
Facts.
This, and I want to be very clear about this is not about preventing women from serving. We very much value the impact of female troops. Our female officers and NCOs are the absolute best in the world.
And this is coming from someone who's got daughters and sons. I got them both. Yeah, there's nothing against them serving in the military. Neither of them did. Actually, none of my kids did. Just kind of odd. But I would say that I'm glad he included that about the women, just because it's not really not about that. It's just if you have a standard, and depending on what job they're going to do, if it's physically demanding, if the occupation is physically demanding, it's physically demanding on everybody. And he does add that high standards are going to weed out weak men too. So if you can't hack it, pack it. One of my first words to say that.
But when it comes to any job that requires physical power to perform in combat, those physical standards must be high and gender neutral. If women can make it, excellent. If not, it is what it is. If that means no women qualify for some combat jobs, so be it. That is not the intent, but it could be the result, so be it. It will also mean that weak men won't qualify because we're not playing games. This is combat. This is life or death. As we all know, this is you versus an enemy hell-bent on killing you. To be an effective, lethal fighting force, you must trust that the warrior alongside you in battle is capable, truly physically capable of doing what is necessary under fire. You know, this is the only standard you would want for your kids and for your grandkids. Apply the War Department Golden Rule, the 1990 test, and the E6 test, and it's really hard to go wrong.
I'm gonna stop the video there, but I mean, I think it's a good listen to or watch video if you want to see the entire video. But he does mention the Golden Rule and essentially building a new culture and a legacy of warrior within the ranks. And for him to do that, he's got to remove his words, not mine, loosely, the decay and the erosion of that over the last decades of maybe not putting the best, that over time the military probably has eroded in terms of standards, discipline, readiness, all these things that makes us extremely lethal. And it's really, we need that. We need that in the ranks. It's not always like cool to get corrected or to get disciplined or to run these missions at night and you're tired and you're driving and you're road marching and you're shooting. You put your pro mask on and you're trying to qualify with your weapon. Late nights, early mornings, working in austere conditions. Dude, that's part of it, man. Like it is a part of you being in the military. Man, if you served in the Air Force or something, I don't pick on you guys. I'll pick on you guys. But I mean, it didn't matter. Like, I guess it depends on your profession, what MOS you pick, military occupational specialty. I mean, if you picked the POG, administrative, then that's what it was, man. We all got to pick our jobs. Some had more choices than others based on your ASVAB score, and others were like, hey, this is the only job you could do because you scored a 82 or something. But hey, just let me know, man, what you think, what you agree. Man, it might not be the most popular message, but I think it's a message that we need right now for our military. So, yeah. Until the next video, stay safe out there and watch one another 6. Later.